This is Dave from Bay Stencil, coming to you from inside King Spray Graffiti. In a recent post, we looked at a bunch of different images, some of them really great images from Unsplash, and also some random images mixed in. And we took each image and we kind of rated it in terms of how good a stencil it would make. And right at the top of the list, there were a couple of portrait stencils that struck me as really good, and I wanted to just take them out for a spin and see how they work. To get started, I'm going to lay those stencils out across the top here so that we can look at them and see what we've got. Okay, so for this image here, we have the woman in the foreground and some palm trees in the background. You have the lightest layer, the mid-tone layer, and the darkest layer. For this image here, we have the same thing. We have the lightest layer, the mid-tone layer, and the darkest layer. Let's start by painting the first image on a light background. So we'll leave out that first layer and just see what happens. Before I even paint this layer, I know that there's something that's going to bother me. All of these connecting bridges here are going to bother me. This little piece of masking here that is being connected by these bridges, it's way too much bridge for what it does. So what I'd prefer to do is I'd prefer to cut this layer out. But I'm going to show you first what it looks like when you go ahead and paint it with the bridges in the way it is. So you can probably see what I really like about this stencil. I really like that it has a sense of push-pull. You definitely get a feeling of foreground, background. There's unmistaking the expression on the face, and I love it because it goes up really quick and it's unambiguous. It is totally expression of happiness, and I'd love to use it more. The thing is, there's a couple things that bother me. One thing is that there's all this bridge work here, and so I just want to take the stencil. I want to take that stencil right there, the one on the right, the third one on the right, and I want to cut those bridges out before I use this again. The second thing is that I kind of want to allow for this area to have a little bit a bit lighter in it. So when I use this darkest layer, I'm probably not going to hit this edge so hard or go all the way to this edge. One thing that's nice about this stencil is that I'll be able to, once I cut this crap out here, I'll be able to use this area to do maybe something more interesting occasionally, just to play with the fact that I have a large area to cover here that I don't have to paint all one color. Let's see, is there anything else I would fix with this? Well, the other thing is that this looks to me like it would also work pretty well as a mid-tone stencil where the mid-tone comes in, but if I do that I have to get rid of this. I can't use this white layer all the way to the edge because then I get that box effect that I don't like. So maybe I'll pass on the mid-tone layer this time. I'll just try to do something better. I'll cut this stencil. I'll cut the black stencil, and I'll try to do something more interesting with this in the second round. Okay, so you can see that I've cut out the areas in the black stencil that I didn't like. I had to leave a few of them because obviously otherwise it falls out. If you want to look at this one up here, if you only left two of those bridges that are connecting the central face element, then you would have something that would spin around, and you don't want your stencils to spin around when you go to store them. So I leave 3 bridges for those big pieces, and that is enough to anchor this thing, and all the rest of it I can work around. Notice too that those little small areas, actually let's show you over here. These little small areas like this and maybe this, I actually just totally removed that one because the presence of this thing required all these bridges to help make this thing more stable, and I just figured it's better to just get rid of that element than it is to have all those bridges present. Okay, I decided to do the mid-tone layer first here because There were a couple things I wanted to do with it that I wanted to line up with the darkest layer. So you notice that I just used a little bit of color around the mouth. I think that will kind of roughly translate to lips and the shadow above the eyes. I just made it a little bit darker near the eye, a little bit darker near the nose, because I think that'll work out well. And then I just added a little other random color in other places to see how that works. I didn't use any of the side elements here. I think I'm just going to leave those out because I really like the purity of the expression, and that's what I want to keep. So nothing big here, nothing to write home about, but I'm going to go into the next, when I lay the next layer down, you'll see that I'm going to get a little more creative with it. Okay, let's get to work on this dark layer. I don't think I wanted to mess around too much with the central expression. I think the fact that the eyes are dark is really central to this thing. So for the inside of this, I'm just going to go straight black, as dark as I can. And then if I want to do some free expression stuff, I'll work around the edges. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Notice that I went and I used a whole bunch of different colors in here, and you might not always have that many colors to use, but it's good to have just a couple of really crazy wild colors to throw in when you've got an opportunity like this and you've got a large expanse of space that you can really do anything with, because all we really need to do is darken this enough that we can see that it's hair. Let's see, it could turn out that we need to darken it a little bit more. I probably want to go ahead and just do that. I'm using this beef splatter cap here to do this, to kind of put some darkening around the edges, but it's not a big deal. I just feel like there we go, and then we could probably just do a little bit of crazy line work in here. Let's just do pink dot thin cap. Let's go all the way down and just do all right. Now, unlike before, this is not going to look like funky bridges. It's going to look like something different. Let's see what we've got. Okay, I don't love it. Let's try that again. Let's try that again with a slightly different. I think what I'm having a problem with is just the high tone color being this really crazy white. It kind of has a weird look to it that I'm not sure I love. I like the lips and the lines around the face, and I like the general color work, but the hair needs to be darker, maybe with a highlight on the top and not so much crazy stuff in the bottom. And I need to fix these bridges in the midtones before I go further. So I'm going to take one more swing at this. With that as my light color, I think I should be able to do something that I like a little bit better here. And like I said, I'm going to fix the midtone bridges right away, but I think I'm going to still do the midtone first and then the dark. All right, I think that's a pretty good match of the midtone layer. Let's see, we wanted to fix this midtone before we go on. That's a good idea. Let's do that with the feather duster here. Nothing too major broken there. Okay, let's see if this is any better. Let's just drag this guy off. And oh, I'm so much happier with this. It worked out well. I didn't quite realize the dream I had to lift the shadow totally off this side here. You know, this is a very hard line, and I tried to reduce the hard line here. I think I succeeded here, but kind of at the cost of getting the rest of this thing. The rest of this kind of looks like a carpet or something. And then now this one looks better. It has a good expression. I don't really love the way this line is now so strong. Before, this line was strong, but it kind of, the next line was a little less strong. And this one, this line is less strong, and this line comes out to be more strong. So I'd probably try to, if I did this again, I'd probably try to soften both of those, because those really should be more gradients as the light follows the face around, whereas these are more sharp shadows and they're doing what they should do. I'm going to clean up a little bit around the edges here for the bridges on the dark side, and see if that doesn't make us finally happy with this. All right, I think I really like this now. I'm also liking the way the details around the bottom kind of look a little bit psychedelic. They mix up the patterns that naturally occur in the clothing from the stencil, and they make it a little more lively. I got a little bit of the palm tree element there, so I might want to just brush that out a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so it got better, definitely got better. That's the raw stencil. That was the first attempt. Kind of crashed and burned. And then the last attempt was good. Let's try something else. Let's try a different photo. So I'm going to work on this photo of this artist in a beret. It looks like a beret. And you can see the light, mid-tone, and dark layers here. Obviously, the dark layer has a lot going on in it. It's very bold. The mid-tone, it's harder to see what detail that adds, but obviously there are a lot of pieces that are that work their way in and out of the kind of the terrain of the face there. So that should be good. We're going to try to paint it on white, just like we did with the previous portrait, to see what happens, to see what we can see. And then I think we're going to find that there are some other options that may be available to us. So let's try it on white first. So we're going to leave out the white layer and paint the mid-tone and dark. There's the mid-tone. Really hard to see what's happening here, but one thing I do see is I see 3 bridges up on the top that I really don't need. So maybe I want to do some cutting on this stencil too. Let's do the dark and see what happens. Okay, I like that stencil. I don't like it as much as I liked it when I first color separated it. What I like about it is that you can see the detail of the eyes and the way the glasses are around the face. And you have a real sense of the person behind the photograph, which I really like. What I don't like is this amazingly large area. Like it was nice to have it around her face because you know it was her hair. It's a little harder to tell what's happening around his face here. Is there a beard? Is he wearing a scarf around the edge? You could look back at the original image to kind of play around with it and see, but it's a little harder to tell here, and it's a little bit, the face comes forward, and it's just a little bit of a funny way. Part of it is because of this really hard contrast between the black and the white. The other thing I'm not sure I love about it is the boxiness of it. So you've got the dark layer forming the box on the bottom and the mid-tone layer forming the box on the top, which means that it might be hard to unbox it. But if I really look at it, like I don't have to paint that. I don't have to paint that mid-tone layer across the top because there's no detail there that I need to add. So I shouldn't bother painting it. Just like these palm trees in this picture over here, I just didn't bother painting them. Likewise, I'm going to want to cut these bridges. Not all these bridges, I don't need all of them. This central thing here will stay fixed if it's fixed here and fixed in at least one other spot. I might want to keep 2, but maybe I'll just keep 1, and I don't need this right here. So that gives me some ideas. I'll cut on some of these stencils and I'll come back and paint it again. Okay, so here's what I got with the 3 tones, the white, mid-tone, and black. I saw that there were these triplets of bridges here that really distract me, so I wanted to cut them out so that I don't have to worry about them, deal with them. And what I came up with was, let's go over here, I made this just a single bridge there across the cheek to hold that piece on. It's distracting the way it is right now, so I'll definitely want to go in and move across it. I probably don't want to make that bridge difficult to hide by doing a big color transition across that area. Probably just leave it neutral. And then These other two I also cut. You see, I took the 3 bridges down to 1 bridge, and I left that one there because otherwise that thing is, that top piece is just going to flop, and I don't want that to happen when I'm storing the stencil. It's funny to talk about that when these are all virtual stencils, but the idea is that this actually applies to your real world stencil use. So and then finally the white layer, I went ahead, even though I didn't use it here, I went ahead and cut out some of the bridges on that, so in case we decide to use it, it'll be a little bit more bridge free. And notice that some of these places through the eyes here, you see that one of those bridges on the top was removed. I want to be careful not to remove the things that represent the eyeglasses, because those are intentional. Those are supposed to be there. And I don't want to remove too many bridges because I want those details to stay in the center. The detail around the eyes is really important. You don't want to lose any of that detail around the eyes, especially that little bit above the eyebrow on the his left eye. To us it's his right eye. Okay, let's try this again, and let's try it again on white and just see if we can do something a little bit better than this with the white mid-tone dark expression. Okay, I did 2 things in this case. One thing I did is I didn't even bother to paint that detail or this detail because I don't care. I just want the thing to bleed off into infinity on the top here. The second thing I did is I added a little bit of slightly darker elements around the eyes. Now, if you don't have 17 cans of gray, that's okay. You don't have to worry about it. What I did is I just typically I'll do this layer, this mid-tone layer, in very light black anyway, so that I just get lower coverage, and then I just do it a little bit heavier around the eyes. So even with just a single can of black paint, you can go onto a light surface and do a three-tone stencil. Just do your mid-tone and a very light coverage, and then, like I said, make it a little bit stronger around the eyes, and it'll look good. See, it's a little bit stronger around the eyes here. Let's go ahead and add that darkest layer and see if we can't improve on what we did last time. So notice that what I did here is I didn't fill in this area around the bottom so that it won't be so blocky. Obviously, whenever you use paint and there's an edge and there's a little bit of spray, there's always going to be a little bit of an edge. But I think that with this kind of edge, we can go into that edge after we remove the stencil and paint around that edge a little bit. I also took care not to go so dark to the edges here, because the thing I didn't like about this one is the abrupt falling off the cliff into the darkest regions of the stencil there. I also went a little bit easier here under the nose, and a little bit here, a little bit easier under the under the mouth. And so let's find out what it looks like. Let's pull that away. Okay, so apart from that one really super distracting bridge, which I'm going to take care of, I am much happier with this. To me, this feels much more elemental. It doesn't have the distracting border pieces and everything. It's just the man, and I'm a little bit bothered by this diffuse area here. It kind of looks like he might be naked, and I'm kind of wondering, is he naked? Or in this picture here, I'm pretty sure he's wearing something like a black turtleneck or something, but that's better. Let me fix the bridge here, and then we'll have another look. I think that for 3 tones, dark to the darkest mid-tone to light, I feel like I've taken this about as far as I can take it. The only thing I think I might have done is left a little bit more room to define what the shadows and the hat, the beret looked like. But I'm happy with this as a 3-tone, like a 3-value study. Now, what I really like to kind of cash in on with this stencil is the ability to make this stencil with the mid-tone layer creeping in, and I kind of want to try it. And maybe we'll try it on this natural color here, or maybe we'll just spray some kind of pattern that is sort of darkish, kind of like we sprayed the pattern over here that was kind of like multiple light, very light tones. Let's just play around with it and see. Okay, the thing about doing a light color on a mid-tone is that you don't want to go so crazy with the light color that you make it look chalky. And so what I've done here is I've just let a little bit brighter than the mid-tone in very specific areas, and I've been really selective about how I use the different colors in those areas. I didn't ever want to go totally white with these like I did in this one. Obviously, if it's grayscale, then it's appropriate to go up to a high value of totally white. But in this case, I think that this will come out better and look less alarming. Okay, so I didn't, yeah, that's really crazy. There's, obviously I've still got the dark layer to put into this to really intensify it, but that is really something. It's very ghostly looking and has a really nice look to it. There are a couple things I would fix where a bridge or two is distracting, and I think I just need to hit this with the very lightest feather duster here of some of these tones, if I just can remember which colors I used. Oops, no undo. Better quit while you're ahead, Dave. That's really tricky because those bridges, that bridge is a little bit distracting to me, but I really don't want to mess with this. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the dark layer and hope that I can fix a couple things up in the dark layer. I think this has some really good possibilities here. Let's see what happens. Okay, I don't want to do anything more to this right now. I kind of want to I just kind of want to see it and learn from it. I think that I'm going to have a similar problem with the fact that the bottom of his chest kind of disappears here, and maybe I want to fix that by going ahead and filling in the dark areas and making it more explicitly dark down there. I'm not really sure what's happening with the beret here, but I think that a slightly lighter color on the beret will still leave it pretty dramatic and pretty dark. Maybe I want to darken this spot up here a little bit. There we go. And one more thing, I'll go ahead and take this into the dark. Notice that I've given an outline around the edge that's a little bit darker than the part in the middle. The idea is that this part should not be such a sudden contrast with the dark. It shouldn't become immediately dark right next to the face, because we know that the face actually curves around there. Faces don't just become dark right suddenly on the edge. The light curves around the face. So we're going to leave a little bit. We're going to darken this edge, and we're going to leave this lighter towards the middle of the stencil. All right, enough talk. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. All in all, I feel like with just using 2 stencils to get a result like this, I feel like it's way better than just what we did with the 3 tones. It's better than this one. Obviously, there's something that's a little bit wacky about what I did here. This almost wants to look like hair. It looks like Donald Trump hair or something, which is terrible. But I'll fix that next time. I'll try something very specific with the hat, and let's see if we can get that better, and maybe retain some of the other features of this that we like. That's actually kind of interesting, this bright yellow. It almost looks like a little bit of dappled sunlight. I'll fix this bridge here. We'll take one more look at it, and then we'll try one more. Okay, I like that better too. I like that better without the indistinguishable hair. Okay, is there one thing missing here? I think the one thing missing is that I didn't really do anything right around here, and I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of light, with the lightest feather duster I can. Okay, very subtle again. I think I went a little bit too light again on this, and especially in the center area. Let's see what happens when I put the dark layer on. Okay, since power's getting low, time's running out, I'm just going to go ahead and do a reveal here and see what happens with this. Okay, so obviously something to fix there, but I like it. I'm not sure I like it better than the one before it, but I like it, and I like the way the midtone went into the center of the subject. I like the way the light kind of plays a little bit. This one looks a little bit more sickly, probably because there's a little bit more green in the background, and maybe this one looks a little bit more lively because the colors are more realistic, more human. But then this one does a little bit better job of letting the sides come forward, and you actually see a little bit. You almost see like a chin and a throat here, which is probably a little bit better. I'll fix this bridge, and we'll have one more look. You know what? Another thing I like a little bit better about this earlier one is the outlining around the outside. It kind of makes it makes it a little bit nicer, and I don't think I allowed myself enough time to do that over here. But in general, one of the reasons I really like this stencil is because it looks good with the white layer with 2 tones on white, and it also looks good with dark tones and light tones on mid-tone. So put this in your back pocket and think about it. This is Dave signing off from Stencil.